Very good morning to one and all. I'm Dr. Sunil, Assistant Professor, Department of General Medicine. Today we'll be discussing about a urinary tract infection, which is very important in practical point of view and exam point of view. So we shall be discussing the topic under these few side headings: the definition, pathophysiology, risk factors, diagnosis, and the management of UTI. Coming to the introduction, UTI is an infection in any part of your urinary system. That is, it might be in your kidneys, ureter, bladder, or urethra. Most infections involve the lower tract, the bladder, and the urethra. Women are at greater risk of developing an UTI than men. Among adults aged 20 to 50 years, UTIs are about 50-fold more common in women. As the age increases, it is almost equal in both male and female, because males will be prone to develop BPH, benign prostatic hyperplasia. So they are at equal risk of developing UTI after the age of 50 years. So let's see the urinary tract anatomy. I think everyone is well versed with the anatomy of the urinary tract system. That is urethra, opening of the urethral orifice, the bladder, internal sphincter, external sphincter, and the ureter, the kidneys, renal pelvis system, and the callus. So let's see the risk factors for UTIs. We can broadly classify these risk factors into four. That is iatrogenic or drugs, behavioral, anatomic or physiological, genetic. We shall see each in detail. Coming to the iatrogenic or drugs, indwelling catheter is a common source of UTI in a hospital setup, as is Foley's catheters provide an ascending route for perennial bacteria to enter the bladder. And coming to the antibiotics and spermicidal drugs, recent antibiotic use disrupts the normal bacterial flora at the vaginal introitus, allowing uropathogens, that is especially the E. coli, to colonize. The same way, these spermicidal drugs cause irritation and attachment sites for E. coli. Coming to the behavioral risk factors, voiding dysfunction. It causes increased post-voidal residual urine volumes, which allows more time for the bacteria to proliferation. And the other one is frequent or recent sexual intercourse. This may introduce bacteria into the urinary tract. It's a direct infection. Coming to the anatomic or physiological risk factors, it is a vesicoureteral reflex. It causes urinary retention and allows more time for the bacterial growth. The retrograde flow also allows bacteria to ascend to the kidneys. Whereas female sex and pregnancy are also the physiological risk factors. Females, as all of you know, they have a very short urethra compared to the males. That is why they are more prone for the UTIs. Coming to pregnancy, it results in a progesterone-mediated smooth muscle relaxation to the bladder and ureter, and the compression of the ureters by the uterus. Because of this, both result in urinary retention for increased bacterial growth. Coming to the genetic factors, familial tendencies like UTI occurrence tends to cluster in families, and the susceptible uroepithelial cells and vaginal mucus properties, where the susceptible uroepithelial cells secrete less IgA, which is the main humoral defense mechanism of the physiological mucosa. And the properties of vaginal mucosa allow E. coli binding more readily. It is easy to remember when you divide the risk factors into the four categories, and you can reproduce in your exam. Coming to the pathophysiology, bacteria that most often cause hysteris and pyelonephritis are the following pathogens. Enteric, usually gram-negative aerobic bacteria. E. coli is the most common, accounts to 75 to 95% of all the cases. Next comes the Klebsiella, Proteus mirabilis, and Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Gram-positive bacteria, there are known to cause very less often. The organism which cause Staphylococcus saprophyticus is isolated in around 5 to 10% of all the bacterial UTIs. The other two are Enterococcus faecalis and Streptococcus algae. In hospitalized individuals, E. coli accounts to up to 50% of all the cases. The gram-negative species include Klebsiella proteus, Enterobacter, Pseudomonas, and Serratia, account for about 40%. And the gram-positive bacteria, that is Enterococcus faecalis, Saprophyticus, and Staphylococcus aureus, account for the remaining. Let's see in the pictorial representation the pathogenesis of urinary tract infection. Initially, at the level of urethra, the colonization occurs. The pathogen or the bacteria colonizes the periurethral area and ascends through the urethra upwards towards the bladder. From there, it penetrates into the uroepithelium. We'll see how. The fimbria allow the bladder epithelial attachment, cell attachment, and penetration. Following penetration, bacteria continue to replicate and form biofilms. From where it ascends into the urethra, once sufficient bacterial colonization occurs, bacteria may ascend on the ureter towards the kidney. Fimbria, which may aid in the ascension process, bacterial toxins may also play a role by inhibiting peristalsis, that is by reducing the flow of urine, which ultimately leads to pyelonephritis. Infection of the renal parenchyma causes an inflammatory response called pyelonephritis. While infection of the renal parenchyma is usually results of bacterial ascension, can also occur from hematogenous spread also. Do not necessarily, this pyelonephritis do not necessarily need only the urinary tract infection, but it can be caused because of this hematogenous spread also. And once again, this pyelonephritis is a short notes from exam point of view. When the pyelonephritis increases, it can cause acute kidney injury. If the inflammatory cascade continues, the parenchymal damage occurs leading to interstitial nephritis. And this may ultimately lead to the acute kidney injury. If we do not respond on time and treat appropriately, it may land up into CKD also, chronic kidney disease. So depending on the part of the urinary tract affected, there will be certain signs and symptoms. We shall see each in detail. Kidneys, that is acute pyelonephritis, the patient will be having the upper back and side pain, that is flank pain, high fever, along with the chills and dryness, nausea and vomiting also might be presenting. When the site of infection is bladder, that is cystitis, there will be increase in the pelvic pressure, lower abdominal discomfort will be there, frequent painful urination will be there presenting complaint, blood and urine also. Coming to the urethritis, that is when the urethra is affected, patient will be complaining of burning sensation while urination and the discharge from the while urine. Coming to uncomplicated UTI, it is usually considered to be cystitis or pyelonephritis that occurs in pre-menopausal adult women with no structural or functional abnormality of the urinary tract, and who are not pregnant and have no significant comorbidity that would lead to more serious outcomes. Complicated UTI can involve either sex at any age. It is complicated. It is considered to be complicated if the patient is a child or the patient is a pregnant. The patient has any of the following comorbidities, like any structural or functional urinary tract abnormality or obstruction in urinary flow. Comorbidities that increase the risk of acquiring infection or resistance to treatment, such as poorly controlled diabetes, already in a case of established CKD, or immunocompromised individual. Or it can be any recent instrumentation or surgery for the urinary tract. These three are the risk factors for a complicated UTI. What are the complications, like frequent infections, especially in women who experience 2 or more UTIs in 6 months period, or 4 in a year? Or there is a permanent kidney damage because of pyelonephritis due to an untreated UTI. Increased risk in pregnant women of delivering low birth weight or premature infants. Urethral narrowing in women from recurrent urethritis previously seen with gonococcal urethritis. Sepsis, it is a life-threatening potential complication, especially if the infection works its way up your urinary tract to your kidneys. How do you diagnose UTI, lower or upper or simple or complicated UTI? You need to collect the urine. It should be clean, and you should collect the midstream urine, not the first urine. You should collect the midstream. A specimen obtained by catheterization, if an STD is suspected, a urethral swab for STD testing is obtained prior to the voiding. Urine testing, there are many rapid tests are available, like a nitrate positive is highly specific for UTI, but the test is not very sensitive. The leukocyte esterase test is very specific for the presence of more than 10 WBC per microliter and is fairly sensitive. Coming to the macroscopic examination, pyuria. Most truly infected patients will be having more than 10 cells. The presence of bacteria and the absence of pyuria may be due to contamination during sampling. So microscopic hematuria occurs in up to more than 50% of patients, but gross hematuria is uncommon. WBC casts are usually seen in pyelonephritis or glomerulonephritis or non-infective tubular interstitial nephritis. Cultures are recommended in complicated UTI or in an indication for treatment of bacteria. Common examples include the following, like pregnant women, postmenopausal women, men or prepubertal children, patients with the urinary tract abnormalities or recent instrumentation, patients with immunosuppression or significant comorbidities, patients whose symptoms suggest pyelonephritis or sepsis, patients with recurrent UTIs, that is more than 3 per year. These are the common recommendations to obtain the cultures. What are the urinary tract imaging choices? These UTI imaging, urinary tract imaging include ultrasonography, CT or IVU. Occasionally, voiding cystography, retrograde urethrophy, or cystoscopy is warranted. Children with UTI most often require imaging. Most adults do not require assessment for sexual abnormalities unless they have the following, that is, the patient has more than 2 episodes of pyelonephritis or the infections are complicated. If the nephrolithiasis is suspected, or there is a painless gross hematuria or new renal insufficiency or a fever, if the fever passes for more than 72 hours. Differential diagnosis, it includes acute urethral syndrome, urethritis, and other few non-infectious causes. Coming to acute urethral syndrome, it occurs in women involving dysuria frequency and pyuria, which does resemble cystitis. However, in an acute urethral syndrome, routine urine cultures are negative. Urethritis common, these causative organisms like chlamydia, trachomatis, and ureaplasma urinalyticum, which are not detected on routine culture, urine culture. Non-infectious causes like anatomic abnormalities like urethral stenosis, physiological abnormalities like pelvic floor muscle dysfunction, hormonal imbalance like atropic urethritis or localized trauma. Localized trauma, GI system symptoms and inflammation. These are the other non-infectious causes for which resembles UTI. Management. We'll see the management for each entity differently. Urethritis. For urethritis, in sexually active patients with symptoms are usually treated presumptively for STDs pending test results. A typical regime is ceftriaxone 250 mg IV plus either azithromycin 1 gram perorally once or doxycycline 100 mg twice daily for 7 days. In case of cystitis, first line treatment for uncomplicated cystitis is nitrofurantoin 100 mg BD for 3 days. Again, it is contraindicated if the creatinine clearance is less than 60 ml. Another drug is trimethofen and sulfametazole BD for 3 days. Acute pyelonephritis. So we must concentrate on this acute pyelonephritis. It might come as a short notes in the exam. So Antibiotics are required. Outpatient, in case of outpatient treatment with oral antibiotics is possible if having the following criteria are satisfied. It means if the patient satisfies the following criteria, then they are suitable for outpatient treatment. The criteria as follows: patients are expected to be adherent. First, they must be compliant to the treatment. Patient should be immunocompetent. That is, patient should be well. Patients have no nausea or vomiting or evidence of volume depletion or septicemia. Patients have no factors suggestive of complicated UTA. Then they are eligible for outpatient treatment. That is ciprofloxacin 500 mg BD for 7 days. And the second option is usually trimethoprim and sulfamethoxazole BD for 14 days. The patient does not satisfy these following conditions, the above conditions, then it is ideal to admit the patient and treat him with IV antibiotics. And you must always obtain the cultures before starting an antibiotic. Right, and the other alternative management for UTI includes cranberry concentrates for adults, increase the fluid intake, and add an urinary alkalizer. In case of non-pregnant women, consider empirical treatment with an antibiotic for otherwise healthy women who are aged less than 65 years, presenting with severe or more than 3 symptoms of UTI. Explore alternative diagnosis and consider pelvic examination for women with symptoms of vaginal itch or discharge. Use dipstick tests to guide therapeutic treatment decisions in otherwise healthy women under the age of 65 years, presenting with mild or less than 2 symptoms of UTI. Antibiotic treatment for lower urinary tract infection. Do not treat non-pregnant women of any age with asymptomatic bacteria with an antibiotic. And again, treat non-pregnant women of any age with symptoms and signs of acute lower urinary tract infection with a 3-day course of trimethoprim or nitrofurantoin. Particular care should be taken when prescribing nitrofurantoin in elderly who may be at risk of toxicity. And take urine for culture to guide change of antibiotics for patients who do not respond to the initial therapy. For pregnant women, in case of asymptomatic bacteria, standard quantitative urine culture should be performed routinely at first antenatal visit. Confirm the presence of the bacteriuria in urine with a second urine culture. Do not use dipstick testing to screen for a bacterial UTI at the first or subsequent antenatal visit. Treat an asymptomatic bacteriuria in a pregnant woman with antibiotics. Do not neglect in pregnant women. And how do you treat? What is the choice of antibiotics? Take a single urine sample for culture before empirical antibiotic treatment. A 7-day course of treatment, that is either amoxicillin or sulfamethoxazole, is normally sufficient. Given the risk of symptomatic bacteria in pregnancy, a urine culture should be performed 7 days after the completion of antibiotic treatment as a test for cure. You must obtain a culture before initiating a treatment and after the completion of treatment to document the cure. Coming to the men anyway, they are less prone to urinary tract infection in middle-aged or individuals. Suppose when you come across a urinary tract infection in men, you view as complicated because they usually result from an anatomic or functional anomaly or instrumentation of the genital urinary tract. So conditions like prostatitis and chlamydial infection and epididymitis should be considered in the differential diagnosis of men with acute dysuria or frequency, and appropriate diagnostic tests should be considered. All men with UTI, a urine sample should be taken for culture, because when a man present with an UTI, you must bear in mind it must be a complicated UTI. When coming to the management, how do you treat? Due to the ability to penetrate prostatic fluid, quinolones, that is ciprofloxacin rather than nitrofurantoin or cephalosporins, are indicated. So the other drugs usually do not penetrate the prostate. So we prefer ciprofloxacin as a drug of choice if the men present with an UTI. Treat bacterial UTI empirically with quinolone in men with symptoms suggestive of prostatitis. 4-week course is appropriate for men with symptoms suggestive of prostatitis. Do not give it for a week or 2. You must give it for 4 weeks. That is a month course if you suspect a prostatitis in an elderly male. Refer men to urological investigation if they have a symptoms of upper urinary tract infection, who fail to respond to appropriate antibiotics or have recurrent UTI. Do not delay by changing the antibiotics. It's better refer to a neurologist who do not respond for initial treatment and who have a culture negative. Patients on catheter do not rely on classical clinical symptoms or signs for predicting the likelihood of symptomatic UTI in catheterized patients. The signs and symptoms compatible with catheter-associated UTI include new onset or worsening of fever or rigors, altered mental status, malaise or lethargy, flank pain or costovertebral angle tenderness, or acute hematuria. These are the signs and symptoms which are compatible with the catheter-associated UTI. And do not use dipstick testing to diagnose UTI in patients who are on catheters. And it is better to initiate antibiotic or change the antibiotics. Do not treat catheterized patients with asymptomatic bacteria with an antibiotic. Do not routinely prescribe antibiotic prophylaxis to prevent a symptomatic UTI in patients with catheters. To drink plenty of fluids, especially water. Even a cranberry juice also prevents this UTI by alkalizing. Always wipe from front to back the private areas. Empty your bladder soon after the intercourse. Avoid potentially irritating feminine products. You must advise the patient to change the birth control method. In women who experience more than 3 episodes of UTIs per year, behavioral measures are recommended. If these techniques are unsuccessful, antibiotic prophylaxis should be considered. Common options are continuous or post-coital prophylaxis. Coming to continuous prophylaxis, it commonly begins with a 6 months trial. If UTI recurs after 6 months of prophylactic therapy, prophylaxis may be reinstituted for 2 to 3 years with trimethamphetamine sulfametazole orally once daily for 3 times a week, once daily or 3 times a week. Or you can start the patient on nitrofurantoin 50 or 100 mg once daily, or cephalexin 125 to 250 mg once daily based on the body weight. In post-coital prophylaxis in women may be more effective if UTIs are temporarily related to sexual intercourse. Usually a single dose of one of the drugs used for continuous prophylaxis is enough. In postmenopausal women, antibiotic prophylaxis is similar to the prescribed previously. Additionally, topical estrogen therapy markedly reduces the incidence of recurrent UTI in women with ectopic vaginitis or ectopic urethritis. So summary, treat non-pregnant women with 3 days of nitrofurantoin. Treat asymptomatic bacteria in pregnant women. Consider STIs, sexually transmitted sexually transmitted infections and prostatitis in male. Do not give prophylaxis for adults with catheter and do not treat asymptomatic bacteria. So we shall see how far you have understand with the following cases. Suppose a case of a 25-year-old pregnant lady with a 10 weeks gestation presents for a booking visit. You have reviewed for booking investigations. They are normal apart from bacteriuria. Patient has no symptoms of suggestive UTI. How do you manage the case? So I'll brief you. A 10 weeks old gestation, 25 years female presented with investigations with a normal part of bacteriuria with no symptoms, suggest of UTI. How do you manage? You want to reassure and advise her to go to increase the fluid intake, or repeat urine microscopy for confirmation, or send for urine culture and manage accordingly, or you want to send culture and start antibiotics? How do you? Let's see. Send for culture and manage accordingly. There is no hurry because the patient is asymptomatic. You can send for culture, and if you find any pathogen, then you can manage accordingly. Let's see the other case. Supposing a 20-year-old male present with a dysuria for 2 days duration, just dysuria, he don't have any fever or abdominal pain. Urine microscopy shows 20 white blood cells, 4 RBCs. How do you manage? You do a sexual STI screening, or request for an ultrasound, or send for urine culture and sensitivity and start antibiotics. But you want to start antibiotics and repeat urine microscopy after a week. How do you want? So just a very young male patient with 2 days of dysuria. Apart from dysuria, he doesn't have anything like no fever, no abdominal pain. In routine examination, he was found to have 20 white blood cells and 4 RBCs. How do you want to manage this case? Let's see. You can send for urine culture for sensitivity and start an antibiotics. Usually, the males are very less prone for an UTI, that to an young patient. So you must always suspect an STDs and other infections. So send for a urine culture and start an antibiotics, and always you can review the antibiotics after getting your culture reports. So start an antibiotic. Let's see the other case. So posing a 28-year non-pregnant woman presents with dysuria and lower abdominal pain for the last 3 days. Urine microscopy shows a plenty of, that is around 40 WBC cells and just 2 RBC cells. What is the best antibiotics for this patient? Just see, non-pregnant female present with dysuria and lower abdominal pain for 3 days duration. Urine microscopy shows 40 white blood cells. What is your drug of choice? So amoxicillin 500 mg 3 times a day for 3 days, or augmenting, that is amoxicillin and clavulanic acid for 7 days 3 times a day. Ceftriaxone 125 mg IV a single dose, or nitrofurantoin 100 mg for 3 days. Just considering the age, symptoms, and a urine microscopy, what is the drug of choice? It's nitrofurantoin 100 mg BD for 3 days. Again, if you see the same case present in an elderly, you must think twice before initiating the nitrofurantoin, because they might be having other comorbidities, or there may be having side effects. So always consider initiating an nitrofurantoin in young patients only. If you want to start an elderly, think twice and ask for another investigations in an elderly patient. That's it. Thank you. Any questions? Please go ahead. गिरी डायलॉग बॉक्स काవాలి क्वेश्चंस की So IV, somebody has asked what is the full form of IVU. IVU stands for intravenous urogram. And somebody else has asked, can we start aminoglycosides for gram-negative bacterium? Sir, yes, but aminoglycosides are more nephrotoxic, so it's better to think twice before starting an aminoglycosides. Definitely, it's a good drug, but in view of nephrotoxicity, do avoid for elderly patients. And it's better to go slow if the patient is stable. Children, yeah, even the children, pediatric population also we can in pediatric population you must consider structural abnormalities, and you must further investigate for any structural abnormalities initially. Then you can start the antibiotics. If you don't found any structural abnormalities, it's just an UTI, you can start vein-based regime. These are the same drugs. Any other questions? We have plenty of time. Yes, yes. When you suspect a pyelonephritis from heterogeneous spread, always it's better to go for a better antibiotics with a broad coverage like carbapenems or piperacillin tazobactam. It's always better to cover broad spectrum. You can choose a drug which covers both the gram positive and gram negative, and better to start an injectable antibiotics when you suspect an heterogeneous spread. And usually they need an inpatient admission for better care. They may deteriorate if the spread is heterogeneous. And if you don't treat on time, they eventually land up in AKI. UTI in third trimester, again, it's because of the ureter compressing on the, uterus compressing on the ureter. So most of the drugs are, you can better start with ciprofloxacin. It's a safe drug in third trimester. You can start them on ciprofloxacin. Ask them to void urine frequently so that the residual volume will be less. The growth can be minimized. UTI in third trimester. So we shall hold for the discussion for other 5 to 10 minutes. So you can go ahead. So it's a very important topic for both practical point of view also. You come across this UTI very commonly. So you must know when to start, ask for an investigation, when to start a treatment in a practical point of view. And for exam point of view also, you'll be getting this UTI or this acute pyelonephritis as a short note. So do go back and go through this topic. BPH and UTI, not necessary. BPH and UTI does not always coexist. They will be having a similar complaint, like they will be having urgency, hesitancy, and frequency. So the BPH is severe and it's obstructing the flow. The residual volume will be retained in the bladder. That will be the medium to develop for the bacteria to colonize, and it will grow. If you treat this BPH on time, there is no chance for developing UTI. This is a risk factor, but that doesn't mean the both coexist. Not all the BPH patients will be having UTIs. There are many other reasons for UTI in other than BPH in male patients. Depends on which trimester the patient is. It's better to obtain a culture and then you go for an appropriate antibiotic in pregnant women. So if no more questions, we'll wind up the session. We'll wait for another 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, so as there are no further questions, we'll wind up the session and please go back and go through the topic. Thank you. And for